For this lesson, I want to see what multiplication by a negative number does to a graph. So again, we're starting with some function, and we can multiply either the y value or the x value by a negative number. So I have the square root of x drawn on this plane, and let's first look at y equals negative the square root of x. So again, we're starting with the square root function. So what would happen if we look at negative the square root of x? And as before, we are multiplying the y value by, in this case, -1. So you can look at each y value on this graph and then just plot where it goes. So you can pick any point you like. Maybe I'll just pick 3. So here's the point 0, 0. The y value is 0. And -1 times 0 is 0. So it stays right where it is. Okay? Just to get a couple of others, like I said, here's the point 4, 2. So the y value is 2. 2 times -1 is -2. So that drops down here. So I'll plot that. That's 4, -2. And maybe one other. Here's the point 9, 3. So the y value is 3, meaning it'll go down to -3. So what is essentially happening, if we take the y value of this graph and multiply it by -1, it's going to reflect over the x-axis. So let me sketch in the entire graph. You get something that looks like this. So multiplication by a negative number reflects the y values. So this is a reflection, and it's over the x-axis. Now if we compare this to, let's say y is equal to the square root of -x. All right, so in this case, let's see what happens. It was always the opposite if we're adjusting the x's instead of the y's. So again, I'll pick a couple of points, starting with 0, 0. This is going to be a reflection over the y-axis. So 0, 0 stays right where it is. But if we check out the point, let's say 4, 2, it's going to go to -4, 2. So the x value, which was 4, is now -4, but the y value stays the same. If we now look at the point 9, 3, it's going to be -9, 3. So again, we're just making the x value negative. And the entire graph looks like this. So maybe just a little further explanation as to why, if you put a negative next to the x, it reflects over the y-axis. We can pick any of the points that we ended up with. So I'm going to choose, well, let's say the point -9, 3. So I'll write that down here. If you plug x equals -9 into the function y is equal to the square root of -x, we get y, the square root negative, but you get another -9. That simplifies to the square root of +9, which is equal to 3. So you need this extra negative in order to make it become positive, so you can take the square root of it. And the net result on the graph is anything that has a positive x value, well, now it has a -1, meaning the graph is going in the opposite direction. So there is a lot going on here within changing the values of x, but in essence, it's just reflecting over the y-axis. So changing the x reflects over this axis. This negative outside the function, which changes the y values, is reflecting over the x-axis. And for example 2, the idea is, here we're again starting with the function y equals the square root of x, and I want to see how this function, -2 times the square root of x plus 15 plus 5, is different than this original graph. So I'm going to just jot down this equation. Y equals -2 times the square root of x plus 15, and then plus 5 at the very end. There are 3 things that are different in this brand new function. So not only are we changing the x, here we have an x plus 15, which changes the x value. We have this -2, which is outside of the function, so that's changing the y value. and this plus 5 is also changing the y value on the graph. I'm going to list in order what this new function does to the original graph. So starting with, well, inside the function, we have x plus 15. I know this is going to be a horizontal shift. And since it's a plus 15, it's going to go to the left, the opposite of what I expect. So the first thing is the graph goes left 15 places. Okay, the second thing that happens is multiplication by, well, it's not just 2 this time, but it's negative 2. So this negative means, all right, we're going to double the y value, but making it negative is going to reflect it over the x-axis. So this is going to double the y value, and then the negative reflects it. And that's over the x-axis. So you can do that all in one step. Double it and then reflect it. And lastly, there's this plus 5 at the very end. Okay, we're adding 5 to the y value, and I know that means, okay, we're going to go up 5 places. So all we need are just a few points on the graph to get a general idea of where this thing is going. So I'm going to use 0, 0, 4, 2, 9, 3. I mean, really just need enough to see where the graph ends up. Maybe even 2 points would be enough. So let's walk through it. For this point here, we're first going to go left 15 places. Okay, now we're only adjusting the y value. So the y value is 0. If I double it, well, it stays 0. And then if I reflect it, since it's on the axis, it does not go anywhere. But the last thing is it goes up 5 places. So I'm adding 5 to the y value, and we end up at negative 15, 5. So let's get just a couple of other points here. Okay, this is the point 4, 2. All right, first it's going to go 15 places to the left. So I'm going to just take 4 and subtract 15, and that's going to go to negative 11. Okay, now we're doubling the y value, which is 2, so it goes up to 4. But then we reflect it over the x-axis, so it's really negative 4, which is right down here. Okay, but then we want to go up 5. So if I go up 5 places, we end up here at a positive 1. So let me mark that. And okay, one more point. I think we should really have a good idea of where the entire graph is going. So again, I'm focusing on 9, 3. So just like every other point, it's going to go 15 places to the left. Now I'm only addressing the y value. So the y value is going to go, it's going to be double. So it's going to go from 3 to 6. But then it goes to negative 6. If I go up 5 places, that ends up at negative 1. So let me mark that spot there. That's negative 6, negative 1. I think I get the idea of what the graph looks like. So it goes through these 3 points. It has to resemble the shape of the graph that we started with. And here it is. This is the graph of negative 2 times the square root of x plus 15 plus 5.